Now, where do you go when you're a loser congresswoman who despises progressives? Apparently, you end up on MSNBC. At least that's the case with former Senator Claire McCaskill. Now, Claire McCaskill, of course, was former senator of Missouri. She ended up getting beat by a Republican in the general election just recently. Now, she just announced on Morning Joe, which is, of course, that's the place where you want to go, right, if you want to reach progressives. No, you go there when you want to reach the corporatists, when you want to reach fellow centrists, right? Because that's who Morning Joe is. Former Republican, now supposedly an independent, but he'll always be a conservative. And so they have this conservative show. It's 3 hours on MSNBC. It's insane. Anyway, now she announced, quote, "I'm looking forward to bringing my experience from the Senate, hard-fought campaigns, and Midwest common sense to the coverage of breaking political events. And as always, I won't hold back." Well, at least you can trust her on that, because she certainly didn't hold back against progressives. She certainly didn't hold back against Senator Bernie Sanders when he was running in 2016, when he was running in the primary. In fact, she has been consistently attacking progressives, attacking AOC, calling her a shiny object, for Christ's sakes, and saying how much she agrees with Donald Trump. She's supposed to be a Democrat. She's barely a Democrat. Now, according to The Hill, in her new role, and this is funny, McCaskill will provide political analysis on NBC and MSNBC. Because, of course, we should all be taking political analysis from a person who thought it would be great to go even more right-wing in her re-election race and ended up losing. Now, that whole race is about, oh, McCaskill's too liberal. And she's like, no, me, liberal. No, I love Trump. I vote with Trump all the time. I agree with Trump 100% on immigration. In fact, take a look at this. When there was this caravan, right? Now, that caravan, immigrant caravan, whatever, turned out to be obviously a big fear fest. Yes, there were people coming to the American border. Guess what they were trying to do? They were fleeing violence and attempting to try to appeal for asylum. Now, some of them ended up staying in Tijuana, in Mexico, and applying for asylum there. And others, we don't know what happened. But what we do know is that was kind of an election stunt by Donald Trump. As soon as the election was over, he stopped talking about it. And they were still at least a week away. But nonetheless, here's what McCaskill said, quote, of the caravan: "Stop it at the border. I think the president has to use every tool he has at his disposal, and I'll 100% back him up on that." That's her attempt of even reaching further to the right. Oh, no, I agree 100% with Trump. Whatever he does in the border to scare away the caravan, I'm for it. Elect me. Vote for me. Well, it turns out, when faced with the dilemma of voting for a conservative, a Republican, or Republican light, they chose the Republican. But where were progressives? Did progressives have an option? No, they did not. Oh, there are no progressives in Missouri. There are progressives everywhere. You just have to give them an actual choice. And in this case, in McCaskill, they had no choice. They had somebody who voted with Trump about 50% of the time. And obviously, as I said before, went after some of the most popular progressives in the party. Bernie Sanders, of course. Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in America. We know that already. I say that all the time. And I point out that poll all the time. Not only that, but you also had Elizabeth Warren, right? And she continues to attack both of those people in an attempt to win over Republicans. And she ended up losing big time. And as some people are pointing out, she ran and won because she was running against a guy who literally said legitimate rape. Oh, if it's a legitimate rape, the body has a way of shutting that whole thing down. How can you not win against that one? Just saying. As right-wing as she is, or as supposedly liberal as she is, according to Missouri Republicans, Josh Hawley, the guy who beat her, that was apparently a bridge too far for Republicans. At least back then. Maybe now you can get away with a lot worse as a Republican. But anyway, as far as NBC or MSNBC is concerned, that's the kind of expertise that we want. Well, let me tell you, boy, howdy, we can't wait to get our analysis from Claire McCaskill. Now, look, I'm not saying that everyone at MSNBC is terrible. I mean, Chris Hayes seems like a pretty decent person to me. Look, Rachel Maddow is smart. I used to watch her. Now she's kind of unwatchable at this point because, and look, some of the stuff that she's done on Michigan was fantastic about how they've been taking away democracy in Michigan, and sometimes she breaks fantastic stories. But generally, MSNBC is a sewer. I mean, it's terrible. And what they're doing is that they continue to lean in, but they're leaning to the right. So, and they're doing that by hiring corporate Democrats, people who are barely Democrats, who are conservative, and then, of course, conservatives to give you a conservative perspective. Why? Because they are so afraid of being called liberal now. They're not at all representative of progressives. And look, you don't hear from progressives unless you watch independent media, or unless, of course, you end up getting, famous like AOC and Bernie Sanders, which thankfully, of course, they have been on some of those shows. But other than that, do they hire on progressive analysts? Do they hire on regularly enough progressives to counteract both the Republican and the centrist Democrat position? No, they don't. I wonder if there seems to be a bias at work here. Gee, I don't know. I can't tell. Again, all these news outlets, supposed news outlets, are criticizing AOC, Bernie Sanders, and now Tulsi Gabbard. A lot of hit pieces coming out against her when she's apologized for her homophobic past. And again, look, see, here's the thing, right? And forgiving people for things that they've done in the past. I'm actually a big proponent of forgiveness if you have done right, not just by coming out and speaking out against those positions that you previously had, but also doing something about those positions. And to be fair, Tulsi Gabbard has actually sponsored some incredibly strong LGBT protections since then and has come out full-throated against the positions that she used to have. Now, Gabbard, just like AOC and Bernie Sanders and other progressives, they're not perfect, obviously. But from these, other news sources, you have these criticisms, and I think that is driven by an anti-progressive bias. So, mark my word, by the way. Speaking of bias, her analysis for MSNBC is likely going to involve her telling Democrats to go even more corporate and even more right-wing. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.